Hi everybody, welcome to Psychology 2301. I'm your instructor, Dr. Tisali Medley. This is one of what will probably be a few lesson videos to introduce you to each of the units that you'll be asked to review throughout the course of this very quick, very short summer session. So let's get started. Hopefully you've made your way through the orientation chapter, which is lesson 0. After that, you should move quickly to lesson 1, which covers chapter 1 in your textbook. So I wanted to touch on just a few of the pieces of information that you'll be reviewing in chapter 1. All right? So chapter 1 covers the general definition of psychology and some of the history, the etymology of the term, and of the field itself. So psychology is unique because it does a great job, in my personal opinion, I'm biased, of integrating human behavior and animal behavior with the overall scientific method. And you'll see that brought up quite a bit. Scientific method, empirical method. We'll be talking more about that. So during the course of the semester, some of the things that may be covered are the difference between pop psychology and the actual science of psychology. So things that we hear, myths, things that may seem to be true, but actually how do we study those things and prove that what we think is actually true? The scientific foundation of psychology is very important to the field, and as I said, you will hear multiple references to it throughout the course of the semester. Practices that are used to affect behavior are expected to be based in very rigorous scientific tests to actually support the effectiveness and the accuracy of those beliefs. All right, so that scientific method is going to be really important. And you'll get an introduction to that in chapter 1 and then moving into chapter 2. So the overall goals of psychology that you may hear reference to include 4 things: to describe the mind and human behavior, to explain behavior, hopefully to be able to predict behavior, and lastly to control behavior. And so depending upon your particular area or expertise, the goals that you're focusing on may be a little bit different, but each of those goals is important to the overall field itself. All right, so to understand psychology, you have to review the history of the field overall. Chapter 1 is going to review some of the important events and people in the history of psychology. You will talk about structuralism and functionalism as 2 of the foundational schools of thought in the early development of psychology. You'll see that structuralism was criticized because it was reductionist, elemental, and mentalistic, and there were some criticisms of functionalism as well. So read the chapter to determine which view, if either, is your preference and which one suits your personal fancy. One of the most fascinating things about the field of psychology, in my opinion, is its breadth, right? How much can be included and connected to and related to psychology. So there are lots of perspectives out there. If you're a psychologist or end up being a psychologist at some point, there are so many options for you, which is one of the great things about the field. Each of the perspectives out there influences what particular element a psychologist might examine, what tools they use to examine those things, where they look for pieces of information. So some of the common perspectives that you'll read about in your text are psychodynamic perspective, the behaviorist perspective, the humanistic perspective, cognitive, biological, evolutionary, sociocultural, and some of the more contemporary perspectives as well. You'll find a lot of psychologists actually use a blend of multiple perspectives in their day-to-day work. Okay? Now, in kind of moving into that area of what it is psychologists do and how they do their work, surveys say that there are more than 500,000 psychologists overall worldwide. When most people think about psychologists and what they do, they think specifically about clinical psychologists, right? People who work specifically with mental health and psychological problems. But psychology is so much broader than that. There are so many more divisions than that. Psychologists can specialize in a wide diversity of subfields. There's clinical, there's counseling, there's cognitive, personality, developmental, social, industrial, organizational, school, sports psychology, health psychology, community psychology. The list goes on and on and on. Now, at the start of the 21st century, psychology has become even more international, more global, and more diverse in the composition that it has of researchers and practitioners, which is a great thing, right? More diversity is great. Again, you'll find that most psychologists will respond by using some sort of multidisciplinary approach to understanding behavior that is going to combine more than one subfield, right? And so that idea of bringing in multiple perspectives, multiple ideas is pretty prevalent within the field of psychology. So that pretty much completes our quick review of Chapter 1, Lesson 1. Make sure you complete the assignment for the first unit, which involves the Careers in Psychology discussion board post, reading through that information on the different career options that are available. You'll also want to review the rest of the information here, specifically in this lesson, the other videos that are available, and other resources that are meant there to kind of support you in your learning process as you move through the chapter. If you have any questions on the content, definitions, things of that sort, you can post questions directly to the discussion board. There's a thread specifically for questions, concerns, areas of interest that you want to discuss related to content in the chapters. All right, and so I look forward to hearing from you all, meeting you in the introductory discussion board post, and getting to know you a little bit better throughout the course of the next 4 weeks. See you soon.